In today's video, we're going to be creating all these cards plus more using just one stamp and coordinating die set. All that's coming up, so stay tuned. Hi, I'm Jeannie Scott. Welcome to the Upper Craft Room, where we make a mess and create something beautiful out of it. Back in August, I purchased a Thankful and Blessed stamp and coordinating die set from Gina K Designs, and I have not opened it yet. So I was determined that I was going to use every stamp and die that's in this set, because I purchase stamps and I purchase dies and they get put in my stash and I never use them. Or if I do, I create maybe one, maybe two cards. And even at that, I use maybe one or two stamps and a sentiment or two, and that's it. So am I the only one that feels this way? Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that I did is laid all the stamps on my Misty that would fit. I think there was one stamp sentiment that wouldn't fit. And I'm using the VersaFine Clair ink, ink, and I'm stamping that all up because VersaFine Clair gives a really crisp image when you're inking that on detailed stamps like this. Like these stamps have a lot of detail. They have lines and just a lot of detail in them. So I want to make sure that I got a really good crisp image. And you never want to just close the lid and open it. You want to give the ink enough time on the paper to soak in. So you just kind of not press hard because you don't want to squish the images, but you just kind of like, smooth over it so you get a really good image. And I created, I think, 7 of these so that I could get a lot of images because I wanted to create as many cards as I possibly could. Now I'm adding them to my magnetic mat to the Empress Elite die cutting machine. I'm using this magnetic mat because it is powerful, and I happen to be cutting out a lot of dies at one time. So I really want these stuck down. I don't want to have to worry about any shifting or movement happening while it's going through the die cutting machine. Once I got these all cut out, I realized I wanted more pumpkins and eventually some leaves. So I brought in some inks that I thought would work with my watercoloring. And any of these inks will work, but I think today I'm going to go ahead and use the Altenew ink because it's new and I want to see how it works with watercolor. It says it works with watercolor. I just want to test it myself. So I'm using Altenew and I'm stamping out my pumpkin, and I'm going to stamp out, I think I stamp out like 6 of these. And I then set my dies aside because I realized I want to watercolor before I cut them out. So I'm using tomato soup, and this is my very first time ever watercoloring, especially doing this on video. I'm a little intimidated, but I thought that I would do it here. Just why not, right? Because this is what it's all about, learning as we grow. I'm going to get all these pumpkins colored in. So far, so good, but I can tell you I'm probably the world's worst watercolor person. I'm better with ink than I am anything. I love doing inks, not great with watercolor, colored pencils, or any of that kind of thing. But I'm having my hand at shading now, and all in all, they turned out okay. You're going to be able to see where it bled over the lines, but I'm going to cut them out, so I don't care about that. I don't think they turned out too bad. Here's the end result. Tell me what you think. Have you ever watercolored before? Is it something that you make a lot of mistakes with? Because I sure do. Okay, next up, I have all the dies cut out, as you know, and I cut out some of my sentiments and I colored some of them, and I have all of my elements now inked up. Most of them are inked. I did, I think 1 or 2, 3 maybe, did some colored penciling, and didn't like that either. I used Gamsol with it, and I wasn't crazy about how it was turning out for me. So I moved on to watercoloring and then eventually inking. But here I am inking up a ton of backgrounds. I think I do 3, but then I end up doing 3 more later. And I'm making a bunch of fall backgrounds because I'm going to use this as the background of my elements, and I want them to kind of coordinate together. So I use the same colors, all those colors laying on my desk there, and I just mixed them all up on these backgrounds together. But I mixed them up differently. Some I made orange, some I made brown, and then I added a little plum punch, so it had some purple in one of them. And now here are my dies. This is the most important thing to all of your cards, is having good backgrounds. I use rectangles, I use squares, I use all the Gina K Designs master layouts. I just went through and cut out all of these elements. I mean, not all of them, but I cut out a lot of different elements because I had no idea what I was going to do with these cards. So I just picked out a few elements from each of these master layout sets And I just cut them all out so that I could just kind of play and figure out, at least if I have something to work with, I can kind of come up with some designs, some ideas. So that's what's great about having master layouts or some type of background dies. It doesn't really matter which or company they come from as long as they work for you. So check your stash and see what you already have on hand, because the backgrounds are, like I said, the most important thing to your card standing out. Okay, so when I started this card making session, I had no idea what I was going to do. I just started stamping and inking and cutting out pieces and making the background. I knew I wanted fall colors, so I knew what colors to do, but I still had no idea, and still don't at this point, as to what I am creating. Now I'm trimming down my layering cardstock that I inked up, and I'm just getting smaller pieces so that I can start cutting out all the elements that I want from all of those background dies that I pulled from my sets that were in my stash already. And I am first of all going to pull up the squares from Crafter's Companion, and I just cut out a couple of the smallest 2 squares so that I can layer one on top the other. And I end up putting the pumpkins on top of each of those, and I think I did another one with the apples, which you'll see here real soon. I think I said the 2 smallest squares. I meant 2 smaller squares of the die set. Okay, so here I found a leaf embossing folder in my stash. It doesn't even have it's probably a knockoff. It doesn't have a name. But I thought the leaf matched my maple leaf. I believe it's a maple leaf that was in the stamp set. So I decided to use that because it matched so well. And I'm just gluing it to the back of the Master Layouts 20 border die that comes in Master Layouts 20, and I'm mounting it with foam tape on Rested 125. It's heavyweight, base weight cardstock, and that is going to be my base card. I always use the Rested. I think it's called Rested. It's RESKID, and Reskid, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's 125 pounds, and I always use that for my base layer because I like my base layers to be very, very sturdy. I want sturdy base layers. Okay, so here I'm just playing around now and trying to figure out where I'm going to put these leaves. Those are the ones that I inked up, and I inked the pumpkin. I can tell because they don't have the little white border around the edges, and those are my favorite ones, honestly. I know that a lot of people like those borders, and in some cases I do too, but in this case I really liked them better without the borders. However, I did create some with borders as well. Now, some of these I'm just going straight down to the center of that border die on top of the leaves, and then some of them I'm popping up on the border die, and I am using a foam dot that way I can pop it up in the center, the ones that are overlapping on the border die that are going over onto the center. I hope I said that. I hope that was clear enough. Anyway, now I'm just popping up the pumpkin right there in the center. And for some reason that looked a little bare to me, so I just started adding leaves around. When I was playing around, I noticed it too. And I just started adding leaves around the border die. Not all the way around it, but I just wanted to add some more added interest to the card. I thought it was so pretty as it already, but it just needed a little bit more. I embossed the sentiment with Lindy's, I think it's Lindy's Stamp Gang, with their embossing powder. It's the Autumn Leaves embossing powder. And I got this from Walmart, I believe, but you can get it on Amazon too. I'll link it below. I'll link all the supplies below just so you know. But there you go. There is my very first card out of this set finished. Tell me what you think. Okay, so next up, we are bringing in the next set of dies and stamps and everything that we created, and I am now sticking the small square to the larger square, and what I decided to do, what I visioned was I cut out all of my card bases, and then I started sticking these together. And the reason I did that is because some of them aren't going to have matting layers, and I just wanted to see it on the card base. So when I was playing around trying to decide where everything was going to go and what elements were going to go with what elements, this is what I don't know, I just started cutting down the base layer cardstock so I could see it on the cardstock itself. So if you don't have one of these tools, you need one. It's great if you get glue on your cardstock, and it comes off great. once you let it dry a little bit, it'll just start rubbing off with that little tool. And I'll link that below too if you'd like to check that out. Okay, so now I'm just lining everything up. It's hard for me to line these things up, but I'm eyeballing it. I don't really measure. I sometimes I measure, but just not very often because I'm just not good at math. So it's hard for me. And so I eyeball most things. And now I'm just adding the pumpkins on top. And that's going to pretty much complete this second card. And so that's card number 2. And I did also emboss using the same Lindy's embossing powder, the stamps, the sentiment for this one as well. I used the darker of the set this time instead of the lighter, but it's from the same set, Autumn Leaves. And there you go. There is our second card finished. Lining things up. Sometimes it can get so hard. But there you go. Second card done. Now we're moving on to the third card. And this is where things just start happening. It just starts flowing because like I said, I basically did a rough draft of how everything's going to look. And so now it's just gluing it all together. I left that off camera because, that took me a little while to figure out what I thought went with what, and I didn't want you to have to sit through that. So, so I just started putting elements together, and then here we go. This is what I come up with. And I still don't know where everything's going, like for sure, but I think they start turning out good. And there's card number 3. That one I couldn't figure out. I just don't think I like the window with it, so I just didn't do it. Now this die came from Master Layouts 15, and the flowers from the stamp set I picked out to use on top of this. And they're the inked ones. I inked those because I can tell because that little white border around the flower is pink. So I know that it's the one that I inked up. And I'm just, very simple cards, very easy to put together once I, had it mapped out and what I was doing. It just took me a minute to do that, but things start flowing from here. And, I start getting a lot of cards out of this set. I'm pretty proud of this set, actually, because I was determined I was going to make so many cards. And there's card number 4. Okay, and this set... These layouts actually come from Master Layouts 8 and Master Layouts 15. And I believe the strips come from Master Layouts 8. And then this little square or rectangle here that looks like a postage stamp comes from Master Layouts 15. And then I just took one of the leaves and popped it up, and I'm popping it on top of the postage stamp, and I just thought that was so cute. And then this really adds a lot of interest to the card. I thought it was those strips from Master Layouts 8, I believe. I'm pretty sure. They added so much to this card. I just thought that was like the perfect touch. I started using my old scissors, and I realized I forgot that I got new scissors. These are the Tim Holtz recoil scissors, and they get very close, and they're so much easier because of the way that you grip the handle to cut with. I just love these scissors. And this card we're just using the squares again, the Crafter's Companion squares. And I wanted to use those little pieces that I haven't used, those little leafy pieces with the buds on them. I think they're not buds, they're probably spent flowers. So I decided to bring in the honey mustard, and I did use an embossing folder on the back pieces. I used the gingham embossing folder by Gina K Designs, and I then popped up one of those pieces that we inked up and cut out with a square on top the honey mustard. And I just thought that was a very good combination. It made it just went together so well. So, no doubt. Then I went ahead and grabbed those spent flowers, and I glued those straight down to the top of those pieces, and then added the apple on top of that, which I think I remember earlier in the video I told you that we were going to be using the apples with these squares. I just did it vertical instead of horizontal. The other one was horizontal. This one's vertical. And so I'm just using those foam rounds, those foam dots again to pop up those apples. And I believe I embossed, we'll see here in a second, I believe I embossed the sentiment with this too. I did, using the autumn leaves again. I embossed that sentiment. I didn't emboss all of them. Some of them I just left black. Oh, that is just a black one. I didn't emboss that. All right, so now I needed to use those 3 flowers, and this was hindsight's 2020. I wish I would have added a background to this one, but I did not. I think it's cute, but I think I could have made a little bit more interest and draw the eye in more if I had added a black matte or a brown, dark brown matte behind it. But it's still cute, and you know, I had a little trouble figuring out where to place that, but then I just did what Gina K did in her video and put it across the flowers, the sentiment, and it turned out well. And that was card number 6, I believe, and this is card number 7. Now, this one I had already put together because I did it with the watercolors. It was the very first one I did, and I was playing around, and I didn't really care for those watercolors. I didn't even think I was going to use those, but I ended up using them, and I edged the cardstock with some warm cocoa, and then I went ahead and added the checkers behind it. I didn't have the ones that Gina used, but I had these by scrapbook.com. So I did pop this up also on Plum Punch because I had the purple in the checkers. It just wasn't flowing for me. But once I added that Plum Punch cardstock, that made everything, it just pulled everything together. And I just love how this card, it's like a really down home country card like you would find in Branson, Missouri or something. And then I ended up gluing it on upside down, and so then I had to take it off and turn it around. So if you ever make that mistake, hopefully you'll catch it like I did before the glue dries, because it was very easy fix and I didn't have to rip the cardstock off. It wasn't much of a problem at all. But anyway, and I did emboss with Lindy's Autumn Leaves embossing powder again, and I used that lighter brown for that one. And that card turned out. I believe that's card number 7. And then this one is Master Layouts 20. I used the second piece from Master Layouts 20, which I really like. And what I did is I took the center piece from the first one we did with the border die, and I overlaid the piece. So this is a different die that comes in the set, and I overlaid it on top the middle piece that popped out when we cut that border die. So I was able to use those too and not waste any of that cardstock, which I wouldn't have anyway. And just pop that up on the center. Now again, I said we're using Master Layouts 20. These are inked elements. I inked the leaves and the apple. And yeah, just started. The placement here was a little difficult for me because I couldn't decide if I wanted to go horizontal or vertical with this card. But I just played around with it. And then I had to play around with the sentiment because I didn't know where to put the sentiment. And I ended up, it all went well. And that glue did not spill just now, just so you know. It all went well. But this one I struggled with. And I don't know why. Because after I put it together, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so... This makes so much more sense. Why didn't I do that? The only thing I wish I would have done is turn that leaf the other way and had it coming down instead of going up. And then when I put the sentiment on top that leaf, that pulled everything together and made more sense to me. It just made everything come together better. And that is card number 8, I want to say. And then this is card number 9. And this is where I struggle with this too, because this is a piece of pattern paper and I wasn't sure. Now, hindsight, again, it's 2020. I would have put a matting layer behind this, but I didn't think about it at the time when I was putting these together. I don't know why. I did everything else, but anyway, so I just plopped this down. And then once I put that on there, I knew what I was doing. I knew it had to be something simple. But I just, again, wish I would have put a little brown piece, you know, of matting layer behind that. But I just took the stamps and made my own pattern paper there. I just stamped the leaves and the pumpkins on the paper after I had inked the background, and I just thought that was so cute. And now I'm just adding the elements to it. And I kept, all these cards are very simple, nothing hard about these cards whatsoever. And now that I know how I'd put these together, it'll be easier in the future to use these. These are great for thank you cards. These are great for happy birthday, autumn birthdays, happy birthday cards. And I am popping up, I think I glued both of those elements down, the leaf and the pumpkin. And now I'm popping up the sentiment just to add a little bit of dimension to this card. And it's just happy Thanksgiving. And it could be a thank you card. It could be just, a thank you card, whatever. Okay, so now here's the thing is I needed more pumpkins. I ran out of pumpkins because I used those the most. And I thought, well, I can use a couple more leaves too. So I went ahead and I didn't show you how I inked these before. And these are a hot mess. I know, but they turn out so good. So the problem is that these, when they cut out, there's a border. That little white border that goes around it. And I didn't know how to color these without, nicely with using the ink without covering the border. So I just did. I just colored the border and I just went with it. And these are a hot mess. I was not worried at all about how I ink these up because I cut them out and they're gorgeous. And whenever you put ink down on cardstock, it's always blotchy and it doesn't really come together until you get enough ink on there that it just starts blending. And I know those are a hot mess, but look how gorgeous they turned out. There's the leaves. The pumpkins turned out just as good, and you'll see those here in just a second. But now, because I didn't have enough leaves to finish this card when I was playing around with this earlier, which is why I had to go and create more elements. And so I was doing the leaves, so I decided I needed to do the pumpkins too. Okay, so now I'm using Master Layout 17 and Master Layouts 13 because they went together very nicely, but they came from two different sets. So when I was cutting pieces out, I noticed it and I'm like, oh, well, we're just going to use both of these. And then I glued the sentiment down at the bottom, and that is also heat embossed, and I used a lighter one of the same Lindy's Autumn Leaves set. And like I said, I think I got mine at Walmart, but I'll link it because they have it on Amazon as well. And I'm popping these leaves up, and look how cute that card is. And that is card number 9 or 10. I think it's not. Oh, it's card number 11. Look at that. They're all finished. I made one more card off camera using the extra pieces. So that brings us to 12 cards using one set. All different, all in the same session. Hey, thank you for hanging out with me today. This stamp and die set was so much fun to play with. If you've got sets sitting around in your stash, pull them out. Stamp a bunch, cut a bunch, color a bunch, and then pick your backgrounds. Peek at the dies you already own, like Master Layouts or any background dies for quick ideas. You'll be surprised how fast everything comes together and how many cards you can make in one session. And by the way, be on the lookout for my Christmas series. It's coming soon. And watch for the vintage card video. That one is up next on my channel. And if this helped, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you get notified every time I post. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one.